Speaking of police, it's spreading from Portland, I almost would say like a virus. Plainclothes police officers threw a protester into an unmarked van in New York City yesterday. The video is being widely shared on social media, millions and millions upon millions of views. And once again, we get to this question of what is the line between legal policing by undercover officers with undercover cars versus the authoritarian suppression of protesters appearing to be denied due process. Now, the police department says this is a simple arrest. A woman was allegedly damaging police cameras. Police came in, arrested her, open and shut. It's all very, very simple. Now, it is true that NYPD will often use unmarked vehicles when they're looking for people with warrants. The idea is you want to show up in something that's not obviously a police car. If you have a dangerous suspected criminal, they may act erratically or try to flee if they see a police car. So you show up with some kind of unmarked vehicle. Now, the counter in this particular case from legal advocates and from other groups is that this is the worst possible time to be using these unmarked vans, and that this was not someone police had been looking for a long time who had prior warrants. This was something that supposedly happened during these protests, alleged damage to police cameras, and thus using these unmarked warrant squad vans is completely out of scope unless you're trying to send a message and intimidate. Now, there are about 4-5 different issues here. The first issue is the growing use of these squads that drive up to a protest. Guys run out with guns and throw someone into the van. You may not even know whether these are police or whether you're being kidnapped, and then they drive away. Extremely dystopian, extremely disturbing and concerning. There's the bigger discussion about reforming police. We had a number of segments about that this week already. We had another one 10 minutes ago, and we're going to continue talking about that. Then there's the political utility of the repression of protests for Donald Trump, and we can't ignore that. And we can discuss these things separately. NYPD policy, federal troops versus local law enforcement. We can have all these discussions separately, but underneath all of this, there's this idea that a desperate cornered Trump wants to foment chaos, incite more incidents to then justify more deployment of militarized troops, to create more chaos and more unrest, to justify needing an authoritarian president to protect you from the chaos that you yourself caused and fomented. There's this vicious circle feedback loop. And while here we're talking about NYPD rather than federal paramilitaries that have been dispatched, the strategic implications and the implications politically are very, very similar. But there's another issue that we have to talk about. One of the things that's coming up in these incidents with unmarked vans is people resisting arrest. Now, resisting arrest is an old trope. I've been telling you for years that resisting arrest can be a very pernicious catch-all that's used to justify using more force against people, to retroactively justify police interactions where it doesn't even make sense because you can only start to resist arrest after an interaction has started. Using resisting arrest as a justification after the fact doesn't make any sense, but it's extra relevant right now. There are many normal, reasonable people who, if you're at a protest and an unmarked police vehicle drives up, I'm already using the wrong terms. You don't know that it's a police vehicle. If a vehicle drives up that has no indication of being a police vehicle, and dudes without law enforcement uniforms jump out and go after you, you don't yet have any reason to believe that that's the police. You could genuinely think you're about to be kidnapped by random people. So then you try to get away or at least delay being taken until you can figure out what's going on. Now you're resisting arrest, and that's used to justify being manhandled and even more force used against you. It's a joke. I mean, it's truly a dystopian joke. The people defending this, or at least looking the other way and saying, well, it sort of kind of makes sense if the woman was suspected of destroying cameras, you've lost the plot. How does it become the norm that this is how you're taken away for the alleged crime of damaging a camera? Okay, this is not some major violent individual, even allegedly. It's not someone wanted for beating their wife or whatever. Imagine whatever violent crime you want to imagine, raping someone. You're suspected of damaging a camera. And we're now saying it's an acceptable response for an unmarked van to drive up as if they're looking for whoever, slam on its brakes, 6 guys run out and throw you into the van. Now, I hope it doesn't happen, but imagine that if one of these out of uniform officers in an unmarked van gets killed because someone believes they're getting kidnapped. Then what? Well, then it will become a catalyst for even more repression of protests. You can be sure of that. But this is very ugly for 4, 5, 6 different reasons. And because it is so useful politically, this, even though these weren't federal troops, this still serves Trump's political motivation, which is we're for law and order. He keeps tweeting every 12 hours. Trump tweets law and order. It still foments the idea that we need armed and aggressive police to keep order in cities. And it's useful for Donald Trump either way. So let me know what you think. Is my analysis missing something important here? Am I overstating the concerning nature of this? Let me know. I'm on Twitter. And remember that you can get the daily audio podcast every day, weekdays. We take weekends off on whatever your favorite podcast platform is: iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Pandora. You choose, but we are on all of them. And we'll take a quick break and be back after this. Let me tell you real quick about one of our sponsors, Cuts Clothing. They offer super quality men's t-shirts, and they're giving you 15% off when you go to davidpakman.com/cuts. That's CUTS. Because solid color t-shirts are a really important staple in pretty much every guy's wardrobe. I think it's really important not to overlook the value of having t-shirts you love wearing. T-shirts from Cuts Clothing have been a game changer for me. And as a company, all they deal with are men's solid color t-shirts. So they actually put a ton of thought into the comfort, the style, the durability of the t-shirts they make. They fit perfectly. They're not scratchy. They don't shrink. They don't fade. They don't stretch out over time like so many other t-shirts. They're really the most comfortable t-shirts I've owned, and they look great. This right here that I'm wearing on YouTube is the split hem crew neck t-shirt. Very soft, fits me perfectly. It's the ideal length. Go take a look at what they offer, and once you have it, you are really going to see and feel the difference. Their slogan is, "It's the only shirt worth wearing." You will see why, and you'll get 15% off when you do it by going to davidpakman.com/cuts. That's davidpakman.com/CUTS.